Welcome to What the Health? Where anything health is fair game as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan and Angela Toro.
And welcome to another episode of What the Health. I am Dr. Dan here with my co-host
Angela, and we are excited for another episode. Let me get that little disclaimer out of the way. As always, we are here to discuss health. We're here for informational purposes only. We are in no way offering any individualized medical advice. Always talk to your trusted healthcare provider before making any changes to your routine. So with that out of the way.
And with that being said, we are going to go ahead and get started with today's topic, which I think really speaks to the customization that we do in our office and just the customization of the most successful healthcare providers out there. Because as we know, doing this year after year, there's no one size fits all. So we really want to talk about the progression of physical activity or the progression of exercise today. And we're going to share a testimonial that Angela, covered recently. So we just want to get to, so when we're talking about progression of physical activity, or really specifically what we're trying to do with our exercise goals, what do you mean by the progression?
Yeah, so I mean, progression is one of those words you hear a lot in exercise when you're coming up with a program, and it's really important because as we talk about all the time, our bodies are designed to heal, to grow, to adapt. And essentially that's what exercise is doing. It's working with your body's ability to adapt and grow. But with that, you have to make sure that you're providing enough of a stimuli to actually get the change that you're looking for. So, two things are really important: making sure that you're exercising in the correct way for what you want to achieve, and making sure that you're doing the correct amount for what you want to achieve. So, if you take somebody who wants to get, stronger, if maybe gaining muscle mass is their main goal, then with progression, we're going to be talking about making sure that we're increasing the amount of load. So the amount they're lifting, making sure that they're actually challenging their muscles to the point that muscle is breaking down and then having to regrow and get stronger.
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind with that is, I know, doing certain Soviet strengthening programs, that they were kind of like the originators of that progressive load.
Yes.
And, and the theory is, like, if you have a child go and start lifting, a calf, and they lift that calf up, just once. They go up, lift the calf up, and then the next day they go out and do it again. And the calf is growing, a little bit each and every day. And they, again, the theory is, well, they should be able to continue to lift that calf up because they're getting stronger and growing with the calf. And so we're really trying to progress the load each and every day, and that's more from a strength perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. So that's really important. That comes down to, the example of somebody I was working with recently that, it was like, I've been lifting weights, and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. And it's like, okay, well, run me through your routine. And, he was doing a great job of hitting all the major muscle groups, and he actually had a really good routine laid out. A lot of the times when people say they're going to the gym, I'm like, oh, okay, like, what are you actually doing? And they,
the 20-minute workout is extended over 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, no, you're hitting everything. And okay, I was like, okay, so how many reps are you doing then? And he's like, okay, well, I was doing, I've been doing 15. And I was like, okay, well, what are your goals? And he's like, well, he didn't want to get to what he called bulkier. Yeah. So he's like, I just, I want to kind of work on that strength, but I don't want to get too full, but at the end of the day, you still need to make sure, if you want to get stronger, you still, again, need to make sure that you're having enough of that stimuli. So I asked him, at the end of those 15 reps, do you feel like you could do more, or are you just stopping, are stopping because you got to 15, or are you stopping at 15 because that's truly the most that you can do? He's like, well, no, I could probably do more. I was like, okay, are you feeling sore at all the next day? He's like, no, I'm like, not really at all. I'm like, okay, well, then that's a good indication that you're not actually working your muscles enough to the point that you're going to see that progression that you want to see. So we talked about changing up either increasing the weight or increasing the reps. And since he was already doing the higher end of reps, we talked about, okay, increase, go up on the weights and see how that feels. And next time I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, I really noticed that, by the end, those last couple reps, I was kind of really feeling it. And I'm like, exactly. And that's ultimately what you want. If you're sitting there and lifting something that you can easily lift 15 times, then you're not actually challenging your body. I mean, it's great that you can lift that thing 15 times. Is that still physical activity? Absolutely. Is that still, burning energy? Absolutely. But it's not pushing you to the point that you're going to be getting stronger, that you're going to be progressing. So that's what we were talking about. And that calf example is perfect. You really do need to make sure that you're constantly either changing up the style so that you're continuing to progress, or changing up that load. And certain exercises, yes, eventually you're going to get, bicep curls, I give as an example, eventually you're going to get to the point you can't, you can't curl anymore.
Yeah, you outreach the lever that, the strength of your tendons. And again, you hear stories like this all the time of bodybuilders who, pop different, they break down different joints, or, they tear something because, they literally, a certain area of the muscle is stronger than the tendon attached to the bone. And so, that's again, the extreme examples.
We're not saying that it's going to be indefinite, but especially when you're starting out, you should pretty quickly see that, that progression being able to go up and up and up. So if you feel yourself sort of plateauing early in your exercise program, you probably really need to assess, how much you're actually how much load you're actually putting on those muscles, whether it's the style of exercise that you're doing, the weight that you're using. There's lots of different ways to progress and to make things more challenging for you, for your body. So that's where it's really at the end of the day. And when I say you should be sore the next day, I mean, we don't want you to the point that you can't walk. We always think about leg day, We always know when someone had leg day. The way
can barely get off the toilet in the morning.
Not necessarily that sore, but there should be, if you had a good workout, you should have that your muscles should know. You should feel it. Yeah. So if you're not feeling anything, I describe it the difference of if you go out for a nice leisurely stroll versus a run. Yeah. I'm not going to hurt after going for a leisurely stroll around the neighborhood. If I run or sprint that same distance, I'm going to feel that the next day. Yeah. So that's where, again, if you're not feeling it, then you're probably not progressing yourself to the point that you're getting that appropriate amount of stimuli. Because with any kind of change, you need that right amount of stimuli to get the change that you want. So, and again, just with a simple conversation with me, he was able to figure that out. We were able to change up a few things and make it, again, he really didn't have to change much with his routine. He had a good routine laid out. It was just a matter of changing up a couple weights or changing the amount of reps. And that made a big difference, and for him to be able to start seeing the results that he wanted to see. Yeah,
and we've talked about this before in other episodes where we discuss what's the best exercise or the best style of exercise for weight loss too. And what people need to understand is when you work a muscle to a point of actually breaking it down and then it's actually sore the next day or two, well, your body is burning calories at a higher rate to help repair that, broken down damaged tissue. And that's exactly, the type of increased caloric output that your body needs to actually, help you fat burn if you're doing long term. And that's what we use the example of sprinters, right? Sprinters versus long distance runners. Their build is extremely different.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at them, sprinters, a lot of fast twitch muscle, much bigger, frame compared to the smaller long distance runners.
Look at the thighs of a sprinter versus the thighs of a long distance runner.
Yeah, and it's not that one is better over the other. It's just that there is a difference in the type of muscle and how you break it down. But that sprinter, they don't have to run the the long distance, but I guarantee their caloric output throughout the day, their base metabolic burn that they're doing throughout the day, even though they're exercising far less, than a long distance runner, their load is much higher. And then because of the breakdown of their muscle, they're able to carry that through the next couple of days in their recovery. So that's the discussion that we have to have when we're talking about progression. And the other thing that I think is very important for people to understand is the cycling of different types of workouts, because there is such a thing as plateau. So, and that's the whole concept of you reach a point where, you're doing the same routine, day in and day out, or a couple times a week. And it's like, you just don't feel like you're gaining anything, whether it's strength or whether it's stamina or endurance, or you don't feel like you're having any gains with your workouts, or maybe it's in the weight, maybe it's in the gut, or how your clothes fit, and that was part of this gentleman's challenge. Was he just felt like he was stalled. He felt like he was trying to do all the right things, and so a lot of times it's not in what you're doing, but it's in the change itself, that the fact that you did, keep your body guessing and you transitioned it to a new routine. That guessing, as you mentioned before, helps your body adapt. It's like, it's going through this adaptation. It's this forced adaptation, this forced change. And so now, because of that, different biochemical pathways and different communication pathways turn on in the body. And so now your body's able to kind of wake up and, and start having, seeing some results in what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, in there you mentioned something too, which we kind of talked about at the beginning, which is the importance of understanding what you're actually trying to achieve from your exercise, because that's, the sprinter and the long distance runner have two very different goals. That's two very different types of competition. So they're absolutely not going to train in the same way. And, those are athletes training for a specific event, but even the average person going to the gym, you need to make sure you know what your goal is, because people walk in, they tell me all the time, like, I don't know, I go to the gym and I just get overwhelmed. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, if you don't have an idea of what you're looking for, then that can be completely overwhelming. You see these people doing all kinds of stuff and you're like, should I be doing, even me as a trainer, when I used to go to those big gyms, I'd sit there and be watching people and be like, what, like, should I be doing something? I'm like, oh, no, just stay focused. You know what to do.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane. But yeah, it's really important. Is weight loss your goal? Is losing, when I say weight loss, we're talking about losing fat. Generally, people don't just want to lose weight just to lose weight. But yeah, so, is losing fat and toning up your goal? Is building muscle your goal? Is getting faster, getting stronger? Like, what exactly do you want to accomplish? Because that absolutely, and especially if you're working with a trainer, making sure your trainer knows that, because that's going to gear the program, and that's going to gear the type of progression that they're doing. So if you're just looking for general kind of health, then a mix of strength and a mix of cardio, a mix of flexibility will generally do the trick. But if you have a specific goal, then that becomes very, very important, because you need to make sure you're exercising not just the right amount, but in the correct way to reach that goal. And that's where I think people sometimes, again, weight loss, the myth that cardio, tons and tons of cardio is the best thing. People are out there running for hours and not understanding why they're not losing weight. Yeah. And again, especially if you're somebody that's built like us, that's the best way for us to lose weight is to put on muscle. Mm-hmm. That's how our bodies are built. Like, I could go out there and run all day. It's not going to do a darn thing. But now some people are built that way, and so that's the kind of the third component too. I always talk to people is, work with your body, not against it. Yeah. So it's just, for me to say, okay, I want to get fit but not put on muscle isn't really realistic. And luckily I'm one of those women that I like having muscle mass. It doesn't bother me. Yeah. I know a lot of women don't want that, but getting people to kind of recognize, well, this is sort of how your body is built, and it's, again, you're not going to look you're not going to look like one of those jack bodybuilders. And just getting them to realize that by putting on that muscle, by getting that little bit of muscle tone, it's just going to make you look more fit and feel better and have your clothes fit better and give you more energy, and getting people to realize that, again, kind of working with your body and how it naturally wants to go the direction that it naturally wants to go in. Some people are more thin, some people are more round, some people have that more muscle. There's the different body types. So understanding that about yourself and working with it instead of trying to work against it makes a big, big difference as well. And
and even look at bodybuilding versus, World's Strongest Man, completely different physique. Again, because bodybuilders, are they strong compared to the average person? Yes, absolutely. But bodybuilders compared to the elite strong, men in the world, or strong men or women, when you look at those competitions, those power lifting, strengthening maneuvers that they're doing, they just have completely different builds to them, and even they had the two World's Strongest Man, Eddie Hall and Half Bjornsson, right? Recently, and they transitioned. They both retired from the strongman competitions and then went and were doing a boxing bout with each other, which again they got a lot of crap for because it's like, oh, these two, this isn't this isn't boxing, this isn't anything that resembles, but they still, both of them lost well over 100 pounds and really went from over 400-pound build down to both of them I think were under 300 when they competed, and again they just completely transitioned their body because of what they were actually trying to accomplish.
Training for your goal is so important, and again, whether you're an athlete or whether you're just the average person, you still want to have that goal, because otherwise it's just it starts to be like, okay, what is the point? What are you trying to accomplish every day? And it is okay if your goal is just, if you feel like you're in good health and your goal is just to maintain that, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You just need to have that sort of awareness, and you really want to make sure you're tracking whatever it is. So if it's, if it's weight, I like people to track measurements more than the number on the scale, because the number is not going to always change the way you want it to. But those measurements, waist measurement, hip measurement, just tracking how your clothes are fitting, those kind of things, those are much easier to kind of see that transition. But then also, tracking what you're able to, tracking the weight you're able to lift, or tracking. So perfect example is my one client I work with outside of the office, but I've been working with her for about a year now, and she got so frustrated the one day that she still can't do a push-up. And one, it's like, what is, at this point, it's just in her head. She just wants to do one just to do one. It's not like there's
not like any physical reason.
There's not actually. It's we're not in high school where you got to do that the push-up test for any particular reason. But at this point, it's just where it's in her mind, and she was getting so frustrated. She's like, I'm not progressing. And it's like, I had to remind her, I'm like, look at how far you've come. When you started, we had you do them standing on the wall, and they're now down to being on the ground doing modified push-ups. So on the knees with hands. So I'm like, that is a huge progression, because there were multiple steps between there. It's and so again, kind of having that reminder that you might not be where you want to be, but remembering where you started, that's the other thing with, the progression. Make sure you're doing the proper progression to get the results you want, and make sure you're paying attention to it, because you need those reminders sometimes, because it is, when you have a specific goal in mind, it can be frustrating when you're not there, but remembering where you started and seeing how far you've come can make a really, really big difference for the mental aspect, and keep you going and keep you showing up and putting in the work.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was on a weekend trip with some friends of ours, and it was fun, husband and wife, and they were talking about, when they went through the transition of building out their office and remodeling, the wife did a ton of work, just coordinating all the construction and the permitting, and having everything laid out, and then watching the build and making sure everything was coordinated, and and her husband then kind of came through it like the grand reveal, and again him not doing it purposefully, but just saying well, what about this? What about this? What about that? Being hypercritical about what could have been better rather than the recognition. And it was just so funny to hear both sides of their stories, because it's like she was just super pissed at him, because she's like, wait a minute, do you realize what it took to get it here? And, and again, he was just looking at it like, okay, but what can I do? And not doing it in a critical way, but just looking like, well, what about this? What about this? This needs to be improved, rather than the recognition of, what was accomplished. And again, there needs to be a balance. Yes, right? Because, you have to be able to celebrate your victories, but you also don't want to fall into the trap of, I've accomplished so much, and just sit back and put it on cruise control. There are things that you could continue to improve. So, maybe when that's that plateau, right, that we mentioned earlier. Because if you get to a certain point and you just, plateau, a lot of times that plateau won't last. It'll actually start to, decrease. You'll, and be, you wake up a couple years later and realize, oh shoot, I've just, haven't been dedicated, haven't been, focused on that. So, there's the balance of the recognition and the celebration of the victories and the accomplishments, but there's also then the goal setting of what is next. And then, so again, you got past and present there, but then certainly you want to enjoy, the present moment of just being able to have the opportunity and get up and work out and live your life day to day, and just be be in the moment.
Yeah, so that's what I always tell people. At the end of the day, especially again when we're talking for the average person, when they're asking me like, what should I be doing? At the end of the day, it's what you're going to enjoy, and it's what you're going to keep showing up and doing. Because that's, if you're not training for something specific, then just whatever you're going to enjoy. If you enjoy the group type classes, if that's what keeps you motivated, great, go. If you're getting a sweat in, you're feeling, you feel those muscles and you're feeling that little bit of soreness, great. That's a good workout for you. So find what you're going to enjoy and stick with. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the right program for you. Yeah,
and I think, you can get that with almost any activity. You can turn it into, an exercise, or you can, again, step up the, the intensity of it. Even something as simple as like gardening. I did a garden this year, and, just going out and spending time in that, but like, getting down into a squat position and, picking and weeding, getting down into a, cross leg position. So I'm, kind of doing some stretching in the hips a little bit as I'm, sitting there, picking through and, picking vegetables and weeding vegetables. So there are ways to make any activity, grow towards your, health and well-being, whether it's fitness, whether it's endurance, but, or strength, but, there's ways to customize that, and ways to, make sure that you're doing certain movements that would prevent injury rather than encourage it.
Yeah, I tell people, if you like, even if you just like going out and walking, go and walk and set a timer for yourself every 10 minutes or something, stop and do some squats or, do some push-ups, do something to kind of activate some of the muscles. And if you do that, like throughout your walk, if you're somewhere like in a park, you see a bench, do some step-ups or some incline push-ups or something, do some squats, things like that. And that's just a way to take something that you already enjoy doing, if you enjoy being outside, and just up that intensity a little bit to, again, make sure that you're kind of activating those muscles and getting that progression that you want. So there's lots of little ways. We're not saying if you don't like going to the gym, then don't join a gym, because you're not going to go. So it's finding, taking what you already enjoy doing or what's already part of your routine, and just finding those little tweaks. And that's really what I work with people on. It's not necessarily, telling you what to do. It's finding that solution together, taking what you already enjoy, what's going to work for you, and making those little tweaks, whether it's a home program or a gym program or some combination of the two. Because at the end of the day, what works for one person's not going to work necessarily for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest difference, right? We always talk about disease intervention versus health promotion, and so much of what we talk about, is on the health promotion side of things. How do we grow? How do we build our health? And if you look at disease management, it really is. It's really by force, right? It's you have this, you have X disease, so now you need to take this medication, and there's no discussion at all about it, other than maybe you need to take this amount versus this amount. amount, and but it's all force, right? This is the way, and this is what you have to do. Whereas the facilitation, right, force versus facilitation on the health promotion side of things, it's the discussion. It's you are the active participant in your own health journey, and again, you have a facilitator, you and I, some other trained health professional who understands how everything is put together and can have that discussion and help you make the best decisions moving forward for your health and well-being. And fitness is no different.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think that's a really good stopping point.
Absolutely.
If any of this resonated with you, please feel free to check out our website, ToroFamilyChiropractic.com. We have a ton more episodes out there. So if this is your first podcast, we thank you for joining us. If you're a dedicated listener, we certainly appreciate it. And again, this information is for you, your family, and friends. So take with it. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. And as always, I am Dr. Dan here with
Angela. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
We'll see you at the next What the Health podcast.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You've been listening to What the Health with Dr. Dan and Angela Toro, brought to you by Toro Family Chiropractic. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.whatthehealth.world.